interesting point about what I've said about, I'll come as little as possible on field archaeology, only with my very limited and sort of problematic understanding. Take for example, when nowadays we talk of the Mahabharata, the critical edition, the Ramayana, translated in very recent times by the from a wonderful translation, several volumes have come out. The critical edition of the Arthashastra. Now we talk about it, go to the library, pick up the actual book form and use the material either from the primary text or the translation or the commentary, etc. When do we start to have this luxury in Indian condition? Not before mid-19th century, because there was no printing press, all were even terms of manuscripts. And from manuscripts, you need to have an edited text, a number of manuscripts, so that you prepare a critical edition. And from critical edition, then comes perhaps the translation, then an editorial commentary, or perhaps an editorial essay. The interesting point, I'll give you only two examples of this fascinating scenario. Both relate to none other than Pandit Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar. It was he who, in the second half of the 19th century, as the principal of Sanskrit College, underlined the importance of the text of Madhavacharya's Sarvadarshana Sangraha. At that time, Sanskrit College had only one manuscript. And with only one manuscript, you cannot produce a critical text. So Vidyasagar had to wait and find out two more manuscripts. And only then, what we now get, this very famous text of Sarvadarshana Sangraha, the philosophical systems, by the 14th century author, Madhavacharya, took the shape, because only now you have the availability of the printing, the press, and also the availability, once again by chance, the now 2 or 3 manuscripts. Similarly, once again relating to Vidyasagar, he pointed out that around when he was a student, there was available only 7 cantos of Kumarasambhavam, though the text is 17 cantos. Why the 10 cantos were not there? Because the understanding of the manuscripts was, and whatever was available in even rudimentary script, that the last 10 cantos were full of erotic description between the conjugal love between Shiva and Parvati. So, in the Victorian morality, which is already creeping up, the colonial mentality, the dalliance between gods and goddesses should not come into the public reading. So, edited out. What we talk about, the classical text has the context of being edited out. And who is editing out what? It is being edited out by the editor on the point of his or her time. That is almost unavoidable. Once again, another example, Vidushekar Shastri, fascinating Sanskrit scholar, and scholar also of Pali and Prakrita, master of Sanskrit language also on Buddhist text. I myself have seen his excellent translation of the Shatabata Brahmana and Ashwamedha Yajna. Then certain passages have been put asterisk marks, and he's telling categorically, these are too obscene to be printed in Bengali translation. Iha ato aslil onubad dilam na. Who is describing in what terms what is obscene and what is not obscene? This is the 19th century imposition of the times and the cultural pattern that prompts the person who has intervened into the text, whether in the form of an actual text, a literary text, or a particular artifact of the past, or a visual. So, And my understanding of this, there will be a little bit of personal anecdotes occasionally. I was a student of B.N. Mukherjee. I often say, not always in jocular terms, that without B.N. Mukherjee, I would have been a quadruped. Only because of B.N. Mukherjee, I perhaps walk as a biped in academic world. And B.N. Mukherjee drilled into me and many others who were trained by B.N. Mukherjee, who came in close contact with B.N. Mukherjee, that be very particular with your testimonies. You have to cite as clearly as possible. That's why you will find if B.N. Mukherjee wrote a chapter of 15 pages, there will be at least 12 pages of notes, because he preferred to place all his cards to everyone, that neither he is deviating from his testimonies, nor he is hiding anything under his sleeves. And perhaps he also felt a little bit sure and comfortable that yes, whatever is there, it is already established, shown, demonstrated on the basis of what is his conclusion. This somehow, I was sort of brought up in this tradition. For the last 15 or 20 years, I have become a little bit more circumspect. This is, to some extent, due to two personalities who were not my teachers, who I never got an opportunity to be sort of my mentor. But I developed very close relationship. The one is Ashindas Gupta, without whom I would have never plunged myself into the Indian Ocean maritime history situation. The other, after joining JNU, my regular interaction with Professor Ramila Thapar. About the last, in 2015, I was in a very long interview with Professor Thapar, and during various types of conversations, I just commented, Professor Thapar, I find that you are an empiricist, and she always maintains that she is an empiricist, and in fact jokes about herself that by her position as an empiricist, she's almost a dinosaur, and the old style historian. But I asked her that some of her writings nowadays suggest that she has become more circumspect about her evidentiary corpus than before. I asked this, and she laughed out and said, Ranabir, you have to be always very suspicious about your sources. Please mark this. Suspicious about your sources. Who says what is found, in what context? The context is no less important than your evidence. So that is something, is the moving spirit, why I engaged in that. And as I said, most of the findings, whether from field archaeological sources or from what we call the art historical material, the text, the inscriptions, the find of the coins, these are often not only chance, these are only traces, a few tiny traces of what had remained at the particular time those items belong to.